Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was The Bad Guys, making $4.3 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $82 million and a worldwide total of $200 million. So despite there being a new animated film hitting theaters this weekend, and we'll get to that later, this film wasn't really affected by it at all. It had a very solid hold of around 23%, which is very promising, and was still able to pick a good fight at the box office this weekend, mainly due to it being Memorial Day weekend and many families, especially children, were off from school, so I'm sure that definitely helped this movie out a bit. And just in general, the movie just having very strong word of mouth, the fact that it was really the only family animated movie out in theaters at the moment, as it's still got plenty of time before Disney Pixar's Lightyear hits theaters, and just racking up good word of mouth from both critics and audiences. It has done tremendously well. It has surpassed 80 million domestically and 200 million worldwide, which is well past its $69 to $80 million budget. This film is a certified box office success, with it also being the highest grossing film from Universal this year, until a certain prehistoric movie comes out, but more on that in June, and is DreamWorks' biggest movie since How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, which is all around great. So happy that this movie was able to do as well as it has been, and even if it falls out of the top 5, which it most likely will given where it's at and how much money it's currently making, I still think it's going to hold very well, going to have very small drops. I wouldn't even be surprised if it surpassed 90 million domestically, which is again a very solid total for this movie. So while this may be one of, if not the last time we see The Bad Guys in the top 5 domestic box office results, it was still a great run at the box office. It became quite the sleeper hit and exceeded expectations and became quite the hit for DreamWorks, and I could not be happier about that. Great job. Number 4 was Downton Abbey: A New Era, making $5.7 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $29 million and a worldwide total of $70 million. So this movie took quite a hit this weekend. In all honesty, I wasn't really expecting it to be quite as big as it was. While I did think it wasn't going to have the best hold, I didn't think it was going to get to over 60%, but it did. It fell 64% from last weekend. That is not the hold you want to see, especially when you're trying to grab a audience that has been hesitant on returning to theaters, and it seemed like they weren't ready to go back for round 2 for Downton Abbey on its second weekend, unfortunately. And in hindsight, there were probably a lot more factors that were hurting this movie, specifically this weekend. Obviously, being Memorial Day weekend, a lot more things to do during the weekend, a lot more movies coming out that affected it. And once again, it's aiming for an older audience, which was, once again, as said many times before, the most hesitant on returning to theaters at the moment. So yeah, this movie's probably not going to make nearly as much as the first, but that isn't to say this movie is in trouble, as thanks to its relatively safe budget of $40 million and seeing how it's already at $70 million worldwide, it just needs $10 million more to double that. And given where it's at domestically, it's certainly going to surpass that its initial budget total of $40 million domestically at the very least. So while yes, this is still a cause of concern, it's definitely not going to surpass or maybe even come close to what the previous film made. It might just get to half. Given the circumstances this movie was facing, I think currently where it's at is not only good for its budget, but just good enough where people can be satisfied at the very least. Slightly disappointing, but then again, there was a lot heading this way, and the fact that it was able to exceed expectations last weekend is good enough in my eyes. Number 3 was the Bob's Burgers movie, opening with $12 million this weekend and including the Memorial Day totals. That adds to a domestic total of $14 million, and that total stays the same worldwide as it has yet to make a huge impact internationally. So, this movie's weekends are probably the most polarizing I've ever seen for a movie covering this series because while some may found this to be exceptional, others weren't too fond of it, and I am stuck in the middle where it did good and kinda was a little underwhelming. Let's break it down. First off, it was able to exceed the initial box office projections of around 7 to 10 million this weekend, which is very good, and it was able to open around on par with Death on the Nile, so that's something, I guess, right? That's good. And seeing as how this movie was able to overperform to the degree it did, I think it probably would have done even better if Disney had given this, a marketing campaign. Not where it would be anything that the number one movie of the weekend would have anything to worry about, but certainly it would have a bigger opening that would leave people impressed and saying, this movie didn't do bad. It probably would have even opened to number two had it, but that's a story for another day. As far as the in general totals, in terms of animated films released in the post-theater closure era, this didn't necessarily leave a huge impact. It landed at 7th place behind Paw Patrol the movie, The Boss Baby Family Business, The Addams Family 2, Sing 2, The Bad Guys, and Encanto. So yeah, it could have done a lot better, but it also didn't do nearly as bad as some other animated films. Once again, just right in the middle. And I honestly don't know where this movie could go. It is a comedy, and comedies have been kind of having a resurgence, as I said last week, with stuff like Jackass Forever, Dog, and The Lost City, all being sufficient counter programming and thus having strong holds throughout their respective runs. And I do believe if the best case scenario possible happens, I could see this playing out similarly to Dog, where it doesn't become this huge mega hit, but it definitely impresses others for how well it managed to exceed them. But this is also a movie based off of a TV show, and seeing as how typically those are usually front loaded, this was probably the majority of the fans who went to see the movie, when it could be a problem to where it could end up like Downton Abbey, where it plummets in the second weekend. But then again, Downton Abbey was aiming for a much older audience than this, and I do feel that Bob's Burgers could also have a benefit to it being a late summer comedy and something that you see if the big blockbusters aren't like available and are completely sold out, and you could go see this. This is definitely going to be something we're going to have to wait and see. Let's hope it continues to overperform and does better than the majority of the Fox films, because there are a lot of ways where it could, as word of mouth seems to be going strong for this movie. Cinema Score rating for this is an A, which is very good, and I'm sure fans will encourage other fans of the show to go check it out. It's really the general moviegoers that we have to keep an eye on. Will they help support this movie, or will this end up like something like Teen Titans Go to the Movies, where despite the great reviews, it just unfortunately fades to obscurity in theaters, which would be sad, but then again expected, because Disney did not promote this movie and give it the advertising it rightfully deserves. Hopefully this manages to do better, but I'm not really expecting it to do so. I hope it does, because in my box office predictions for the summer, I predicted this to be the 8th highest grossing movie of the summer, so fingers crossed for that. But the analyst in me knows how Disney treated the other Fox films, and this might suffer the same fate. But then again, strange things have happened on this show. Movies that seemed like they were going to fail ended up overperforming. Like I said earlier, Dog became a sleeper hit. So who knows? This is one we're really going to have to keep an eye out, because it really is something so niche, and we don't really get often movies based off of animated series. So who knows? This is definitely the wild card right now. Let's hope for the better, but the reality may prove us otherwise. Number 2 was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, making $16 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $374 million and a worldwide total of $877 million. So, Doctor Strange has now officially claimed the title as the highest grossing movie of the year, both domestically and worldwide, as it now has officially surpassed the Batman's entire domestic total of $369 million, which was to be expected, but still an accomplishment nonetheless, and puts its domestic total just around $26 million away from $400 million, and its worldwide total around $23 million from $900 million, which are both honestly really solid totals to be on. It'll be interesting to see where the movie will go from then on. Will it cross $1 billion? That seems like something that was so close yet so far, as the movie is starting to slow down. It didn't have a steep drop by any means, but it did fall 50%, and with June on the horizon, I only suspect this movie to continue to drop, not plummet necessarily, but you get what I mean. But even if it does, it's still a huge hit at the box office. I don't see how anyone could look at these numbers and be upset at them. This is a huge amount of cash that this movie has made just alone for the past couple weeks with little to no competition, and is still picking itself up. And yeah, overall, it continues to do very well. Memorial Day weekend, despite the stiff competition, certainly helped, and this movie continues to be a huge success. I don't know what else to say. It's a Marvel movie. It made money. Let's continue with the video. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, and that was Top Gun Maverick, opening with $126 million for the 3-day opening weekend, and including the Memorial Day numbers, that adds to a domestic total of $156 million and a worldwide total of $282 million. This is insane, because let's be real, if it had come out last year, or even when it was initially supposed to come out in 2020, it probably would have done okay, maybe like 76 million opening weekend, but probably get swept under by the other various competitions. But since they held on to it for so long and kept pushing it back time and time again, it allowed this movie to come out at the perfect time and generate buzz with a huge marketing campaign, and the film was able to score a huge opening weekend that set a number of records, which we'll discuss right now. First off, this is the 5th film from Paramount this year to open to number 1, and keep in mind, folks, we're only in May and they've had this many hits. That is just crazy. But also, this is the 3rd biggest opening weekend of the year, obviously behind the Batman and Doctor Strange. In terms of the post-theater closure era, this is the 4th biggest opening, topping Venom Let There Be Carnage, and sitting behind, once again, the Batman, Doctor Strange, and of course Spider-Man No Way Home. This is Tom Cruise's biggest opening weekend of all time, topping War of the Worlds from 2005. This is the biggest opening weekend for any movie releasing on Memorial Day weekend, topping Pirates of the Caribbean, I believe, at World's End, one of them. I can barely remember their names, but anyway. And this is Paramount's biggest opening weekend since Iron Man 2, way back in 2010, aka 22 years ago. This is incredible, just the way this movie was able to rebound and become one of the biggest hits of not only the summer, but the year, and in general Paramount's entire history in a way, because this is a very thin line to walk on. This is a legacy sequel, if you will. I'm sorry, folks, that pun was right there. But anyways, this is a sequel to a movie that came out 36 years ago. You have to really grab people's attention and really earn their want for this movie, because let's be real, Top Gun, with the longevity and the legacy it had, it didn't really need a sequel. But the fact that the movie earned the reception it did, the buzz it got, and the marketing leading up to it was also incredible. It really piqued people's interest. And something we regularly talk about with movies getting pushed back is that so they get pushed back so much so that people lose interest. I think the delays actually kind of helped this movie out, because it kind of came out at the right time. It was enough time away from Doctor Strange, and the only real competition it had to face off was Bob's Burgers, and thanks to Disney not promoting that movie at all, it didn't really even suffer from that much competition. And like a fool, in terms of the summer box office, I predicted this movie would only earn as much as number 6, though to be fair, it's going to be facing off a lot of stiff competition and could be knocked down the charts. But the fact that the movie opens so high and the buzz is so strong, and audiences and word of mouth is also as strong, it received an A+ on CinemaScore. That is fantastic. I doubt it's going to fall to number 6. Overall, this movie had a tremendous start at the box office. This is obviously an outstanding opening weekend. I cannot believe it was able to open this high, because again, I only thought it was going to get as high as 97 million. Now I feel stupider just saying that out loud. But I'm still very impressed with how well this movie did, and I'm sure it's going to be able to crack $200 million domestically for sure, and maybe even 500 million worldwide. It's crushing it internationally as well. People are really loving this movie, and while it will have to face off very stiff competition, as the summer movie season is thoroughly upon us and competition is fierce, I think the word of mouth will be strong enough to still help this movie out a ton. It's still got some time before stuff like Jurassic World, Buzz Lightyear, Thor, Minions, and so on forth, that I think it will still continue to be one of the biggest movies of not only the summer but the year. I don't know what else to say, but Top Gun Maverick killed it at the box office this weekend. Job well done. And those were the top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, and normally this would be the part of the video where I discuss the upcoming new films hitting theaters this weekend and seeing where they would land in the top 5, but it seems to be a very slow weekend at the box office. I know the new David Cronenberg movie, Crimes of the Future, is coming out this weekend, and I honestly don't think that movie's going to leave a huge impact. It's probably not going to crack the top 5 at all, or just enter very low given the lack of marketing I've seen for the film. But it is a horror film, and the buzz for it is strong amongst horror fans, so we'll see how well that movie does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.